Hey everyone. For most of the general public, J. Robert Oppenheimer is perhaps best known for two things: heading the Manhattan Project, the wartime initiative that created a tool of horrific destructive potential, and the harrowing security hearing that precipitated his fall from grace. But beyond Oppenheimer's role as a father of the atomic bomb and the personal relationships and decisions that made him a target of government persecution, there are numerous other layers to the story of this brilliant but complicated man. Today, let's know about the untold truth of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Let's start the video, but before that, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Oppenheimer made many other significant contributions to science that aren't discussed quite as often as his role in the weaponization of nuclear technology. With the benefit of hindsight, it could be said that Oppenheimer was a passionate seeker of knowledge who struggled under the weight of both academic pressure and the consequences of his earlier decisions. Near the end of his life, after fighting accusations of treason, he became the poster child for science being caught between the ethical pursuit of knowledge and the demands of political players. This is the untold truth of the man who was one of the most remarkable personalities of the 20th century. J. Robert Oppenheimer was born on April 22, 1904 in New York. Oppenheimer, whose father was a German immigrant, displayed both an aptitude for science and a predisposition for physical illness that did not go unnoticed by his protective parents. Thus, he was prohibited from playing with other children, spending most of his youth studying alone or in the company of his mother. His encounters with his grandfather Benjamin ultimately served as a catalyst for his lifelong career as a scientist. Seeing the scientific potential in his grandson as he observed the latter playing with wooden blocks, he decided to gift Oppenheimer with an architecture encyclopedia and a starter rock collection with German labels. This sparked the young boy's interest in mineral collecting, but he realized that he was more invested in the structure of crystals and polarized light than in the rocks that he possessed. After some years, Oppenheimer found himself corresponding with prominent geologists in New York. This led to them nominating Oppenheimer for membership in the New York Mineralogical Club and inviting him to give a lecture, unaware that they were discussing the complexities of Central Park rock formations with a 12-year-old boy. The reluctant child was convinced by his father to show up at the meeting, simultaneously amusing the audience with his youthfulness and wowing them with his expertise. In 1925, J. Robert Oppenheimer sailed to England to continue his education at Cambridge University after practically breezing through his classes at Harvard. The speed at which he completed his Harvard courses actually made things more difficult for him later, as it meant he had glossed over some of the fundamental knowledge he would need at Cambridge and beyond. Worse, he was turned down as a mentee by Nobel laureates Ernest Rutherford, who was not impressed by his credentials. This, in addition to being forced to do laboratory work and sit through lectures, contributed to Oppenheimer's growing dissatisfaction with his life away from home. The negative shift in Oppenheimer's disposition reached its ugly climax in an incident that he himself recounted to his friend Francis Ferguson. Per his own admission, Oppenheimer injected an apple with poison and left it on the desk of his mentor, Patrick Blackett. Despite saying that he actually liked Blackett very much, Oppenheimer hated that his tutor kept making him do more of the hands-on lab work he so despised. Luckily, Oppenheimer's attempt at Blackett's life failed, as the latter did not consume the fruit. Had it not been for the intervention of Oppenheimer's father, the budding physicist would have been not just expelled but also charged with attempted murder. Instead, the university put Oppenheimer on probation and required him to see a London-based psychiatrist on a regular basis. A year after his troubled stay at Cambridge and his near expulsion, J. Robert Oppenheimer was in much higher spirits. Under the tutelage of pioneering physicist Max Born, Oppenheimer became a graduate student at the University of Göttingen in Germany. There, he found himself in the company of equally brilliant thinkers, became an intellectual superstar, and developed a habit that irritated his colleagues so much they threatened to boycott Born's class unless the child prodigy could learn to behave. During discussions, Oppenheimer would reportedly interject, regardless of whether it was a classmate or Born himself talking with an air of superiority, what he thought were more efficient ideas. Tired of witnessing Born's attempts at reprimanding Oppenheimer, the class signed a formal petition to make Oppenheimer quiet down lest they all walk out. Opting to avoid confrontation, Born left the petition on his desk for Oppenheimer to see. It worked, and the humble student self-corrected his obnoxious behavior. Black holes have become such a staple of both scientific discussions and popular culture that it may be hard to imagine a time when scientists weren't even fully aware of their existence. Perhaps it's even more bizarre that Albert Einstein, the person we tend to associate with the word genius, once asserted that such cosmic phenomena were impossible. Interestingly, it was J. Robert Oppenheimer and his colleague Hartland Snyder who proposed the idea that these astronomical objects could exist. They published their analysis mere months after Einstein published his own attempt at proving that they couldn't. In an ironic twist, they used Einstein's theory of general relativity as a foundation of their musings. Given J. Robert Oppenheimer's scientific significance, it may be surprising to know that he never received a Nobel Prize. He was nominated 3 times for the prestigious award in the field of physics. First, in 1946 when he lost to P.W. Bridgman, then in 1951 when the prize was given jointly to Sir John Douglas Cockcroft and Ernest Thomas Thynton Walton, and lastly in 1967 when it was awarded instead to Hans Bethe. This may understandably seem like a gross injustice that can never be corrected, since a prize can only be awarded posthumously if it was announced before the recipient's death, according to the statutes of the Nobel Foundation. However, a closer look at Oppenheimer's track record prior to the Manhattan Project reveals why he never won. For starters, despite the fact that he did receive acclaim in the scientific community as a pioneering mind in theoretical physics, the volume of his actual published research was less than impressive. Basically, while there was no question about Oppenheimer's brilliance, his work simply didn't exhibit what the Nobel Committee was looking for. At a young age, J. Robert Oppenheimer displayed a passion for poetry, a flame that stayed lit even as he pursued a career in physics. Enthralled by both the beauty of language and the challenge of learning, Oppenheimer studied Sanskrit. Oppenheimer's friend was the one who introduced a physicist to his Sanskrit tutor as Oppenheimer's taste for the mystical and the cryptic. Learning Sanskrit paved the way for Oppenheimer to read the sacred Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita. In his letters to friends, Oppenheimer gushed about the ancient scripture, calling it the most beautiful philosophical song existing in any known tongue. While there is little evidence that Oppenheimer was particularly religious, he was seemingly drawn to the metaphysical nature of religion itself. His friend and fellow physicist Isidore Rabi shared that he once told Oppenheimer that Christianity was a confusing combination of blood and gentleness. Oppenheimer reportedly responded that it was what attracted him to the religion. This fascination with the supernatural was likely why Oppenheimer reacted the way he did when he saw the successful detonation of the Trinity test in New Mexico on July 16, 1945. Instantly realizing the impact of his creation, he famously remembered a line from the Bhagavad Gita that encapsulated the moral quandary he was in.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
J. Robert Oppenheimer will forever be associated with the atomic bomb and nuclear warfare, but isn't the only way his name has been immortalized in science. For starters, there's asteroid 67085 Oppenheimer located in the region of space between Mars and Jupiter. It was discovered on January 4, 2000 by amateur astronomer Stefano Sposetti at the Nosca Observatory in Switzerland. The theoretical physicist's name has also been used to identify a specific impact crater on the Moon. Found on the satellite's far side, meaning the side of the Moon that can never be seen from Earth, the Oppenheimer crater seems to be almost circular based on its appearance on the lunar far side chart. Formerly known as Crater 382, the International Astronomical Union approved its name change in 1970 following a long-standing tradition of naming lunar craters after deceased engineers, scientists, and explorers who have made significant contribution to their fields of expertise. During his probationary period at Cambridge, J. Robert Oppenheimer was required to see a Harley Street psychiatrist. Unfortunately, they determined that Oppenheimer was exhibiting signs of dementia precox, which is an obsolete, inaccurate term for schizophrenia. Around this time, Oppenheimer was having suicidal thoughts, a state that he later admitted was becoming chronic. Tragically, it may have been the 1954 security trials that ended up breaking Oppenheimer's spirit. Questioned for 27 hours about his past connection with left-leaning parties, Oppenheimer admitted that the trial had left with him very little sense of self. Oppenheimer was sick and depressed in his twilight years, and not just because of the throat cancer that would eventually kill him. His days as a scientist were over. It was too late to cure his anguish with equations.
Quite remarkable because...
Well, that's it for today. I hope you're liking Nerdies discoveries. Can't wait for the next video to learn more and be fascinated about. See you on the next. Bye.